So, Brandstrom,
Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. I can feel it.
All right, folks. You guys remember that? That was the Rings of Power Super Bowl teaser. And
Love it or hate it, the first season of the world's most expensive television.
No. Stop playing. This is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, video games, movies, books, scholarship, literature, and of course, the Rings of Power TV show. And we've got brand new, official, confirmed information from the director of season 2, Charlotte Brandstrom, as well as a lot more gossip about Amazon. But before that, Cliff, welcome back to the show. We missed you last week, but Matt did a good job filling in. You're muted. I can't even hear you.
sorry, I'm trying to finish a sandwich, and I mean a second breakfast. I'm trying to finish my second breakfast at the same time I'm trying to be here and be present to opening the show. What a great opening. What a great opening that was. Remember those good old days last year? Well,
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
All those people, they were all watching the commercials around the Super Bowl, and nothing happened. There wasn't even a surprise, not even an announcement about anything. So intriguing. File that under very intriguing. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. This is your weekly dose of all things hobbity goodness with theonering.net. Myself, I'm Clifford Broadway, and I don't look or sound like Matt, Nerd of the Rings. So it's a pretty fair bet that I took off. That was a very clever disguise. You didn't tell everyone the secret, did you? It was really me in a clever disguise dressed as Matt last week. And so, no, I'm kidding, of course. He is
so you're
wonderful.
using the same magic that Rings of Power introduced, where you can morph into Sadok.
Another human being.
If you wanted to. Didn't in the final episode of Rings of Power the witches morphed into Sadok, and we've never seen that magic ever used before in Middle-earth?
What? The witches were blown into smithereens by...
But before that, during the battle, they didn't they morph into a character?
Yeah, I think that, oh my gosh, I think they did. Actually putting on a surprise little
and then they morphed like
them.
Michael Jackson Black or White style. They just kind of animorphed back into a witch.
Animorphs. You are bringing all the old references back. I love it. It's funny.
There were so many wonderful memes related to Lord of the Rings around the Super Bowl, but this one, of course, we got to give a shout out to Rob on Twitter that said, Mithril shirt was a good choice, crafted by the elves, more valuable than the Shire itself. Of course, that is Super Bowl halftime performer Usher with the shiny Mithril shirt, and I said the same thing at the party I was at, and just great to see Usher representing the dwarven
that was fun.
and elven smith magic at the Super Bowl. So Cliff, I don't know, were you able to catch last week's show? We had a wonderful conversation about all the theme park potential of
yes, you did. Boy, that was a really, really fun fun conversation with Matt, Nerd of the Rings. Boy, that was really cool. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed that it's still hovering in the air. The big press release that came from Universal Orlando Parks included everything under the sun, but instead of going for Middle Earth, they went for How to Train Your Dragon, right? Okay, so that really, came as a bit of a surprise to me. I thought that there would be, a bit of Middle Earth included in that big announcement. So maybe in the next couple of years they might surprise us with something else.
Really
After all,
we've got so much to talk about, but I
sure.
wanted to really quick get your opinion, Cliff, on what it might mean that Rings of Power did not have a Super Bowl trailer this time. Again, we opened the show with the Super Bowl trailer from 2 years ago. It was Rings of Power, huge, coming out basically to the world, to a popular audience. And the Super Bowl just set the record for the most watched television event of all time. Bigger than the ending of MASH, bigger than last year's Super Bowl, bigger than the Olympics. The most watched American broadcast of all time now was this weekend's Super Bowl, and it went into overtime. Really? It was great, and congratulations to Team Taylor, Taylor Swift and the Chiefs for winning. But I think a lot of us fans expected that Rings of Power Season 2 would return to the national stage and present Rings of Power Season 2 as a Super Bowl trailer. What does it mean that Rings of Power has not done that this year? What do you think? Are the rumors potentially more true now that the show might be delayed to next year because we don't have a trailer yet? We don't even have a release date yet.
Yes, I think that the absence of a presence of any marketing during the Super Bowl really is an indication, perhaps, that there's a different game afoot with season 2. There's a whole different approach. And because the studio continues to have locked all communication off from the rest of us in the world, wow, what else can we do but speculate? And it is not unreasonable, this speculation, to think that we might have maybe just are you thinking Christmas time? Do you think they'll bring it onto the airwaves around Christmas time? If not, then it will be next year in 2025. It's either the holiday time frame or nothing at all. That's my thought on that.
Well, here's the thing about missing out on the Super Bowl, Cliff, is that I think everybody here that watches this show and everybody in Amazon is aware of the fan response to season 1 of Rings of Power. It has been lukewarm at best. I think our reviews all gave it a 60 or 70% good rating, right? A solid C+. I think the One Ring in our group chat here gave it that. I believe some other wonderful influencers like Nerd of the Rings with 1 million subscribers on YouTube, Tea with Tolkien, everybody kind of gave it a nice solid C+, which is not great for a $1 billion show. So do you think that if you're going to spend another $500 million on season 2, which they might be doing, wouldn't you want to put this in front of the biggest television audience of all time, like the Super Bowl, and say, or do you think their data shows that everybody kind of gave up on the show? Like the 37% completion rate is not just fans. That's just normal Super Bowl viewers that gave it a shot and turned it off. So
indeed.
So I don't know
well,
what to read
that means
into it.
that means they're trying to not waste money now. Maybe they're rethinking how much money they want to spend.
Do you think
how much?
that?
Well, look at how much they spent with the opening tour. There was a world tour of the first 2 episodes. It seemed that they were everywhere, doing a premiere in every continent, everywhere around the world.
It was great.
And it was huge. It was great. And it certainly was such an expensive, high-profile way to do it. And that's what they wanted. A big, expensive, high-profile, splashy way of introducing the series to the world. So
And
I'm
the first
sure
two
that they've
episodes
been.
are great. And J.A. Bayona, who is nominated for a couple Oscars this year, is still
Yes,
one of the best directors in the
that's true.
biz. And they were lucky to get him to launch Rings of Power episode 1 and 2. It's a shame that he's no longer involved, and now he's got an overall deal
Yes.
with Netflix.
Yes.
So so I and also Cliff, do you think that maybe there was such a controversial reaction to the Super Bowl effort that they did for season 1, which was 2 years ago,
Hmm.
both in the combination of nasty bigoted comments in the YouTube
Hmm.
video,
Hmm.
downvotes on YouTube, even though downvotes don't exist, and
Hmm.
we don't have to get into that. But do you think like
Hmm.
all of that stuff plus the super fans video that they spent $1 million on and then deleted 12 hours later, like I feel like maybe the Super Bowl was a great way to launch this whole series, but it was such a miscalculation on everything around the show that maybe they don't do that anymore. They don't do big splashy TV commercials anymore because it just caused a lot of headache between the downvotes on YouTube and the superfans reaction video that they spent a lot of money on. I just don't know how you market season 2 after
Hmm.
all of this reaction to season 1. Like,
Indeed.
what is the big splashy introduction to the new season that is befitting of Lord of the Rings, but still recognizing the reputation of the show? I don't know what that is.
Um,
Is it an
you know,
Oscar commercial? The Oscars are the second biggest broadcast of the year every year. Do they run a commercial during the Oscar telecast next month?
yes. Well, the Oscars is broadcast on March 10th. That's the date. Oscar Sunday is March 10th. So, um, wow. When you stop to think about it, it is, well, hold on. We have to talk about Bezos money in context, just for a quick second.
Sure.
Are there limits to the amount of money they have? I don't think so. There are no limits to the money that they have, but there are limits to what they're willing to do now because of worldwide fan reaction, because of a 37% completion rate on season 1. Um, but boy, did they miss out on an opportunity at the Super Bowl, the most watched Super Bowl ever of all time. And yes, if they do any marketing of any kind, you'd think that would be during award season because actually, there's a historical downturn in Academy Awards viewership, and that's been happening for several years, with the Academy Awards broadcast having less viewers than back in the days of Billy Crystal as the MC and the host in the 80s. Um, it's just not the same anymore. Huh. You know, it's either that or convention season. We start convention season in April with WonderCon in Anaheim. And that's the first of the season. And there'll be lots and lots of big conventions around. So this is
I don't know.
Oh,
I
somebody in
think
the chat is actually saying the NBA Finals is the second most watched after the NFL, maybe?
possibly.
Yes. Okay.
Susan in the chat room says Rings of Power needs to stunt cast Taylor Swift and then watch the viewership soar.
Oh gosh.
I
Oh
agree.
gosh.
I agree. I've been saying that, not Taylor Swift
Okay.
specifically, but haven't I been saying for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years now, Cliff, that this
That's
show
funny.
would benefit from stunt casting? Like, give normal people a reason to hang on to the show. If Russell
yeah.
Crowe was in this show, my mom would still be watching.
Okay, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you kind of need that stunt casting to guarantee success of $1 billion show. So I don't think Taylor Swift is the right answer, and I don't think Ed Sheeran singing a song on a log is the right answer either. But there are things to do. I hope that we get something before San Diego Comic-Con at the end of July.
Yes. Yes, I would agree. Interesting thoughts in the chat. Durin the Seventh says, doesn't Amazon have the new Fallout series coming first? So
yes, that's it. That Fallout's coming out in April. It's
that would be
Amazon's big tentpole sci-fi series. They've spent a lot of money on it. My gut reaction, and this is no inside info, this is just gut reaction, is that 8 episodes of Fallout starts in April, ends in May, and I think that they attach the Rings of Power teaser trailer to the final episode of Fallout.
Yes.
So that would be end of May.
Really? Now that's interesting. Imagine them cross-pollinating the marketing effort with Fallout. With Rings of Power and Fallout being, well, for lack of a better term, a double bill, a double ticket, you know?
Yeah. So that was the big Super Bowl news. Like, it was an exciting game to watch, and fans were desperate for Rings of Power Season 2 trailer. And there was none. So it bums me out.
Well, they've got Éomer, they've got Carl Urban for the boys, and yes, an anonymous girl in the chat pointing out that The Boys is their tentpole series, actually. Yeah, but how about that? A little. If they got Carl Urban to cross over and do anything, man, anything like that would be a surprise. That kind of stunt casting would help as well. Yes, imagine an original cast member from Peter Jackson's trilogy showing up as a different character entirely in Rings of Power. That'd be interesting.
Right?
Very interesting. Well, how about this? My mind, and I'm not sure that I'm clear on my thoughts on this, but in my mind, I'm pretty sure that if they're not going to do big commercials during the Oscars telecast, then they're going to probably focus on the convention circuit next. That's my thought.
You think?
And I also am getting more and more comfortable with the idea that it won't appear on television this year. If it doesn't show up in 2024 at all, I'm just not surprised at that possibility. I think it's very likely that it'll be 2025.
What?
Well, wait a minute. You don't think that's likely? That they're going to... Well, let's look at the Super Bowl in next January or next February. Okay, 2025. Imagine, right after the Super Bowl is over, we're going to launch the Rings of Power. So they'll take that worldwide massive audience of the Super Bowl, because it'll also be a big show next year. Maybe it'll be an entire year out from now. Who knows?
Who knows?
But the larger game plan doesn't sit right with me. It's not quite right to have such a long gap in between full seasons.
Yeah, of any TV show.
Is it comparable though? What are some of the biggest shows that we know of that had long stretches of time?
I mean, there was a long time between a Game of Thrones seasons, between season 6 and 7 or 5 and 6, 7, 8. I think there was a long time, and they had short seasons as well. Yeah, I don't know. All right, moving on. Amazon also has made another controversial decision that actually affects each and every one of you right where it hurts the most, the pocketbook. Amazon Prime is now facing a $5 million class action lawsuit because it has turned everybody's Prime Video account into a commercial. That's right, ads on your Prime Video unless you pay an extra $2.99 a month. That's right. If you pay, you have to pay $2.99 extra per month as of now, as of February 1st, to get commercial-free viewing. So all content on Amazon currently, if you just have your standard Amazon Prime account for free shipping, if you've done nothing, if you haven't changed anything, if you haven't clicked a button or responded to an email, an automated email from Amazon, or logged in and clicked a checkbox to say sign me up, your account now includes commercials during your viewing experience of Rings of Power and all the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies, which are now on Prime.
Yuck.
Not only that,
wacky.
Just this week, people have found, Prime Video with ads subscribers, which is everybody, Amazon has now confirmed that the removal of Dolby Picture and Sound features was indeed a deliberate act and not a bug. So
what? Really?
So
that's so strange.
It's official. Amazon Prime Video has degraded the quality of the presentation of video. You now have a lesser quality viewing experience for the 8K mastered Rings of Power. They spent $1 billion on Rings of Power, and now you have to pay extra to watch it in its intended 8K Dolby Picture and Sound.
Okay, someone make sense of this, please. Somebody make sense of this. This is crazy pants.
And then this additional comment was interesting to me. And Cliff, maybe you can respond to this comment on X. Sigmund Judd said, Prime Video's decision to remove Dolby Vision HDR and Atmos audio from their regular tiers has many implications. It's not just an affront to its customers with accessibility concerns, but it's an affront to the creatives that are the heartbeat of their original content aspirations. So this guy is basically saying, by degrading the quality of the shows and movies on all of our accounts on Prime Video as of February 1st, this affects the caliber of filmmakers that will want to work with Amazon when they are degrading the quality. Cliff, haven't we been talking about that lately with Warner Brothers? And how who's going to want to work for Warner Brothers if they keep canceling finished films? Well, Amazon is approaching a threshold where filmmakers will just refuse to work with Amazon because there's going to be ads in your movies, ads in your TV shows. It's going to be low quality, not Dolby Atmos, not HDR, not the filmmaker's vision, unless everybody pays extra.
I don't get it. I really, and in the chat, it's also Apple TV as well. Walrus 92 says that everybody is cutting their expenditures, not only Amazon, but Apple TV as well. But it's an interesting side question I have. Is Apple TV adding in advertisements and removing, Dolby, UHD and things like that, and Dolby Vision? Man, I'm wondering. Now, here you go. This is one of the most likely things. XOXO 2000 says that the streaming bubble will burst. And maybe these are some of the earliest signs of that the streaming industry is in trouble. Is that the best way to describe it?
Going through some changes. That's all I would say.
Okay.
It's going through some changes. We go through these waves in Hollywood. I wouldn't say it's in shambles because a lot of people are getting employed. Yes, a lot of people are getting laid off, but a lot of people are still employed. and they're still spending billions of dollars on Rings of Power. And I got to appreciate, I said this when they announced the deal, Jeff Bezos and Amazon might be the best home for Tolkien's TV aspirations, because he has said this show is not dependent on anything. It's not dependent on success or failure. He wants it to be a success. He's told his entire team, if you can't figure out how to do Lord of the Rings correctly, then maybe we shouldn't be in the entertainment biz at all.
Wow.
So Jeff is committed by contract to all 5 seasons of Rings of Power.
Okay.
And he's going to do whatever it takes to make it a good show. Don't you think, Cliff?
I agree. I do. Boy, is it strange. It's so strange. And it just gets more strange because of the silence, because of the ongoing real lockout. I mean, we're facing nothing but weirder questions and weirder leaks, weird reveals from season 2, and there's just stone cold silence. When are they gonna, say something on their social accounts?
Otaku Senpai says contracts were made to be broken. Just because they broke a contract with the country of New Zealand and broke contracts with all the vendors for season 1 and let go of all of the Emmy-nominated department heads for Rings of Power season 1 does not mean that they're going to break a contract with the Tolkien estate. Does it?
That's that's true. I get that. Boy,
it will succeed if they stay true to the lore, and that's it, says Tony in the chat room.
Okay,
that is
look.
a bold. That's a tall ask for the show that they're making.
That's not we've already talked about this. There's a lot of things that are different in this show, and things are going to get even more different and more weird. We've been talking about all this. If the leaks, which are strong,
and they're getting stronger
pieces of information, it's not just maybe. This is all like
Cliff, we have a new Green Dragon gossip leak this week.
Oh, please bring it.
I still have not figured out how to put an audio clip with a video clip, so I need to make like a little Green Dragon gossip.
Yes, that'd be ideal to have something like that. But look at what's happening here.
Do I have this? There it is. All right, Green Dragon gossip. There it is. I got my graphic up. Are you ready?
Let me see ready that. Do it one more time. That's cute.
Are you ready, Cliff, for the Green Dragon gossip?
Yeah, I'm ready. All
right. Today's Green Dragon gossip is the intent of the showrunners and of Simon Tolkien for Rings of Power overall series is to include all 5 wizards.
What? The plan is to include all 5 Istari, the wizards? All 5 of them.
And the Green Dragon gossip, and a lot of people in our Discord have been talking about this loosely for the last few months. But we're getting stronger and stronger leaks that, Cliff, that meteor that we all saw in episode 1 of Rings of Power, that meteor that was in the trailer for Rings of Power, was not a meteor. It was meteors. And what we saw were multiple meteors.
You've got to be kidding me.
And we have seen 5 meteors falling to Middle Earth. And the intent is to introduce all 5 Istari. Cliff, your first reactions to this Green Dragon gossip that we have not confirmed, but the whispers are getting louder. Go ahead.
You've got to be kidding me. That's the first thing I just said a second ago. And, it probably it surprises me if that's going to be true, if they're going to be having all five wizards, you know, it's not necessary, really, because they didn't show up till the third age, you know that, and that's not enough. That's certainly, excuse me,
I'm
certainly not
excited
enough.
for that. Look, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. I know you
I
have
would be,
issues with compressed timelines and stuff like that. I'm
mm,
fine. It's not mind melding, breaking like Sauron having a son is. It like this is a leak that I
okay.
can get behind.
Well, I would have said it's sufficient. It would have been just enough if they had the blue wizards, the ones we've never seen.
We're gonna
You
get
know,
there. We're gonna
I
get
guess
there.
so.
But
But that would have
so
been sufficient. Why
so
do we have Saruman and Radagast showing up? And oh man,
Dan in the
this
chat room
is
says this is one of the
really
better
interesting.
rumors, to be honest. And so here's
Okay,
a little
well,
here's a little background on this. We've been talking about the 4chan leaks. We've been talking about Reddit leaks lately. There were a lot of
yes.
leaks for season 1. Cliff, you had leakers. I had leakers. Reddit had leakers. There were even
Hmm.
4chan leaks. The Sauron Halbrand thing leaked on 4chan first for season 1.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this up. 2 years ago, so this is before season 1 ever came out. 2 years ago, there was a leaker on Reddit who created an account just for one day called ROP Throwaway 2. And then he deleted his account or never
Hmm.
logged in again. Let me bring it up on screen. It's
Okay,
not
let's
very
see.
big. It says, this is from 2 years ago. My belief is that they're going to have all the wizards arrive separately and then meet up in Rune. Generally speaking, the showrunner's attitude towards the lore seems to be that when it comes to the history of the Second Age, they'll take as much liberty as they need to tell a compelling TV story. But when they talk about the First Age or the more metaphysical aspects of the universe, it's going to be totally legit like 95% of the time. Also in the Balrog in the trailer, it's 100% Durin's Bane under Khazad-dûm. So this guy 2 years ago, who had legit leaks, who all of his leaks proved true on Reddit. 2 years ago, he was saying they're going to have all the wizards arrive separately and then meet up in Rune. But Cliff, I want you to respond to the second part of this, saying their attitude towards the lore seems to be that when it comes to the Second Age, they'll take as much liberty as they want. But First Age has to stay true to Tolkien. Your reaction to that?
Wow. Well, actually, it's oh man. Okay, let me have a moment just to put a thought in my brain and then to put words to those thoughts. Let me just have a second. Okay. It is that part about sticking with first age metaphysics and keeping a very clean through line about how that stuff works in its proper place in the history of all of Arda is probably the most important thing. If you're going to do weird stuff like make the 3 elven rings first and not have any other rings made, if you're going to reverse the order of when rings are made and change by a magnitude of centuries and centuries and centuries of when people show up in Middle Earth when they're not supposed to. And if you're going to do all that stuff, then fine, I guess.
But let me
Yeah,
say
but
this.
the Second Age stuff being all topsy-turvy and weird certainly gives us a lot to talk about as a fandom, and it gives people a lot of, what they needed to do throughout all of it, I think, is to have kept a clean through line of all of the lore and made it make much more sense. That's my opinion, really. The Second Age stuff shouldn't just be, oh, we can play fast and loose with it if we need to, but First Age stuff is going to be pure and clear and not changed from the books. Why not have that attitude about all of it, about all of what you're creating? Um,
Shout out to
it's so
Jason Charles
strange.
Millen in the chat room.
So
Welcome to
strange.
the chat room. Anonymous Girl says, Cliff, you look traumatized. I do want to say this.
Oh,
I do want to point out, Cliff, that in the latest leaks,
hello, Jason.
leaks,
Yes.
we analyzed 30 leaks right here on the show. You can go back a couple episodes on our YouTube channel and watch
Yeah,
it,
we did.
because and then we spent 2 more weeks validating the leaks, and then we spent a third week saying whether this is true. And Cliff, on our reaction show, you basically said that everything that was discussed about the First Age and earlier, the Ayulindali and the creation myth, everything that you heard from the leaks checked out, did it not? You were satisfied with hearing about the leaks, about the creation of all of the characters, right? Like you said, this checks out. It's good per the lore. Like, this sounds fine. There's no deviations. So that's why I wanted to bring up this quote from 2 years ago saying the more metaphysical aspects of the universe are totally legit 95% of the time. It's their attitude toward the Second Age is going to be loosey-goosey.
Got it.
And based on the new leaks for season 2, I think that validates this statement from 2 years ago. Don't you think that validates this statement that, the
Yes.
creation myth
Actually, it
sounds
does.
accurate?
Yeah, it does. This does sound quite accurate to what we've experienced. Um, wow. Well, all this stuff that's going to be from the Ainulindale and the music of the Ainur, if they're going to give us all that way before the First Age, metaphysical stuff with the angelic beings and the creation of everything, and the creation of the cosmos and Arda within that cosmos, the creation of EA. Man, oh man, oh man. Well,
Great. I have a great question for you, Cliff, and this comes from the chat room.
Okay.
XOXO in the chat room says, I really think the writers in studio are trying to appeal to people that aren't J.R.R. Tolkien fans, and I don't know how to feel about that. Let me rephrase this to a question for you, Cliff. If the First Age and creation myth and metaphysical stuff is 95% true to Tolkien, as we just discussed, is that enough for you as a hardcore fan, as a producer of Ringers, as a published author on Tolkien? Is that enough for fans to have early creation, First Age stuff be accurate to the lore? Can't you let go a little bit and let them tell a Second Age story?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's kind of what we are doing. I mean, wait a minute. We are, certainly, look, I don't mind things that are going to be changed here and there when it starts to make sense. When it makes some sense with the story that they need to tell about Sauron and the Rings of Power. This is what the story is in front of us. It's not how did the 5 wizards show up many, many centuries early to interfere with Sauron. That is not even the Second Age story at all. But so, yeah, okay.
So it's not
Yeah.
it's not enough to be accurate to Tolkien, as you kept saying. Fidelity to Tolkien. Is it not enough fidelity to have all of the ancient lore be accurate and let them riff a little bit in the Second Age, or riff a lot, like mithril chlorians, as Jason in the chat room says?
I love that Jason just said mithril chlorians, and I am so glad he said that because, look, that suddenly reminds me of the angry conversations among Star Wars fans when Episode 1 came out. All this stuff about midi-chlorians, right? And it has stuck decades later, and the joke about midi-chlorians is one of the ultimate jokes for any fandom to say, is that the moment when the original creator of this or the creators of this sci-fi or fantasy project have gone, a little bit overboard or a little bit off the rails from the lore that we know. But
Mithril chlorians, midi chlorians have become the new jumping the shark. It's the point where
exactly
where the show, the
That's
franchise
what I was
has
I
gone
mean,
way
overboard.
beyond reality and way beyond anything that your hardest core fans can agree upon. And Cliff,
And it's a Happy Days reference. It is a Happy Days reference to when Fonzarelli, the Fonz, was doing what? Water skiing and ended up jumping over a shark in this water skiing thing. That
yeah,
was
the
like,
guy that
has
rides a
nothing to do with the
motorcycle.
Fonz or Happy Days, and had nothing to do with that show. It was the whole invention of jumping
You
the
know,
shark. So
something
crazy
you
pants.
just said, Cliff, has made me more nervous about season 2 and all these leaks and season 1. You just said that it's been 25 years since episode 1, The Phantom Menace, came out. And
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars just
Mm-hmm.
announced that they're going to bring back The Phantom Menace into theaters for May the
They
4th
are.
this year for their 25th
Yes, they are.
anniversary. But you just
Yes.
accurately pointed out that 25 years later, it's still a lightning rod of pain, of a fan reaction, and of a painful reaction, and a pain. Midi chlorians are a painful reminder of just how far off the foundation everybody felt Star Wars had gone to that point. And it almost feels like mithril lore in Rings of Power and some of these other changes that they're making in the show, like the leaks said with Sauron's son and Celeborn is Sauron, and all these other changes that they've made could potentially impact the Lord of the Rings franchise, that we are still angry about Mithril 25 years later. I don't like the idea of staying mad about these changes.
Yep. But popular culture will do that. And it's happening now. Jason just said that in our chat. It is happening right now, that the fandom is still reacting to that. According to Elrond, that story is considered apocryphal, right? But, when the mithril got to the edge of the table, it healed that leaf. So it's, look, okay, it's not necessarily enough, like I said, for them to be like that guy who posted that, and maybe he doesn't have any credibility. There's some question with our live chat folks whether that person who posted that, what was that old account from 2 years ago, Justin, if it's true that everything they want to show us from the First Age, or from the time of the two trees, or even further back in time before the First Age, if they want to show all of that with absolute accuracy and a concern for accuracy to the books and how that sets up the world building, if they're really going to do that, then why wouldn't they have kept that, logically speaking, for the Second Age itself? And
yeah, let me bring that back up again.
The whole thing. Why can't the whole thing be 95% accurate? Why can't all of it, not just part of it? That's the part that I'm struggling with in my logical brainwave here.
Well, Cliff, I think let's close the circle on what you just said versus what this Rings of Power throwaway account said 2 years ago.
Okay.
And let's bring that back to what you just said about midi-chlorians. We are still angry and frustrated about the lore of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, 25 years later. Can they not recognize that by playing fast and loose with the lore as they claim that they are going to, or as this guy claims they're going to, that it's going to negatively affect the entire franchise for 2 decades or more? Like, this is permanent damage that they're doing with Mithril and everything else these changes that they're making, this isn't just like having a creative romp in Middle Earth. These are permanent changes that are going to affect negatively the future of Middle Earth adaptations. And because we're still talking about midi-chlorians 25 years later, can they not recognize that all we want is for them to tell the story that Tolkien wrote? Isn't he good enough for a wide audience?
That's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. What exists in the books is enough to have become a literary phenomenon that has been translated into every language on earth and has been published everywhere and has touched the spirit and the minds of everybody. Everybody who has read Tolkien has walked away from it somehow touched and just enriched. The reading and the experience of reading Tolkien will always enrich the person who reads it and absorbs it. It should be equally true for watching an adaptation. You watch an adaptation of The Hobbit from 1977, and it enriched people. It won the Peabody Award. It was critically acclaimed. It was rebroadcast year after year after year on television. It represents an adaptation of a book that has enriched people. The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings have that peculiar quality, and not all of literature does. And I just want to point that out really quickly. Not all of literature, no matter how great or profound it is, will move the spirit and help mentally, emotionally, and spiritually help a person. Experiencing The Lord of the Rings I consider it a helpful, a beneficial thing that will enrich your life. And people who watch the very successful Lord of the Rings trilogy feel that way, that it enriches them after experiencing that story. And they go and read the books and they get even further enrichment that comes from the desire to read. If this TV show, over its 5 seasons, does weird damage to the lore or things that don't make sense internally, and does not take every opportunity to enrich the audience. And I mean, really, it's about, maybe this is leaning into Tolkien's Catholicism and his religion, his views, but Tolkien was trying to honor the creator, with a capital C, the creator of heaven and earth, by being a sub-creator himself. Think about that for a second. I mean, if that mentality is not in place for a grand scale billion-dollar TV series that is ambitious enough to play in the sandbox of J.R.R. Tolkien's legacy and not be equally committed to the enrichment of the audience because they're just interested in telling a ripping good story that might not make sense, but it's good episodic television. We've got to do some good episodic television, yeah, before we need to enrich the spirit and the minds and bring that kind of uplift to people. I'm not sure that I'm happy about this really, but
I want to add to that.
It's because Tolkien has a particular legacy. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean.
Well,
Go ahead.
That's what I want. That's what I wanted to add to it. I think you just hit it on the head. Tolkien calls himself the sub-creator.
Yes.
In tribute to the creator, to God himself.
God himself.
Tolkien felt that the creation of the languages and the creation of the world of Middle Earth and Arda and everything that he wrote was divinely, if not inspired, a divine tribute
Yes, a
And
tribute to the divine. Yes,
and
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 humility, and he approached it with humility, great humility, as he did
so
so.
so this is why fans of Tolkien have a hard have a hard opinion on adaptations like Rings of Power that are going way off the plantation, because you're basically talking about rewriting the Bible. That is sacrilege. You cannot rewrite God. And here, when it comes to Lord of the Rings, Tolkien himself considered it divinely inspired and a divine tribute. Rewriting Tolkien and the Legend of Mithril and Isildur's dead and Celeborn's dead, rewriting Tolkien is rewriting biblical level important literature. I would never presume that I could rewrite the Bible. I don't think most TV shows could presume to rewrite the story of Jesus for a television audience or movie audience. I think Martin Scorsese tried to with The Last Temptation of Christ, and that got a huge negative reputation that still stands to this day. So
that was an adaptation. That was an adaptation of a best-selling book.
Okay, well, but my point is, this isn't just a book. This is divine inspired, and you have to treat the lore more than just taking an attitude of like, we're just here to tell a good story for the Second Age. Like, if you, it's tough. Let me go to the chat room and read the chat. I love the comments, and let me see if I can. Jimmy Mack says, for Tolkien fans, doing a different story is just disappointing because we all have hopes to see what we've read depicted. If it's a different story, it might be entertaining to new audiences. This is true. This is true. Unstinkable says, it is very hard to enrich the IP when you can barely tell the plot of a few thousand years because you don't have the rights to it. It's fair. There were some others. Katie Roack says, building the Tolkien fandom is not worth it at the cost of alienating the current one and causing harm to the current one, not just the text. Cliff, do you want to respond to that? You've been following Tolkien fandom. Is it worth growing the fan base, but at the expense of alienating the current fan base?
No. It's not worth it. In short, answer, no. Why should there be any fragmentation about this? But there's Donna Elam in the chat had said this is too negative and too pessimistic, meaning our conversation, Justin. You can like the show, you can like PJ's films, and you can love the books. I'm out. Well, I'm sorry. My apologies to our viewers. My personal apologies to you, Donna, and to our viewers in this lively little show that we have here. We're not trying to be pessimistic. And certainly, we do our best to be the least negative and the least pessimistic show out of all fandom that is doing any YouTube content. We try our best to be the least negative. And
also we're
looking at the reality
a very
here.
Active message board. We have a very active Discord. We have hundreds of thousands of fans commenting on our Facebook groups, our Facebook pages, our Instagram posts all the time. We are exposed here. Cliff and I are exposed to millions of comments every month. We have a pretty good pulse of where general fandom is, as well as the hardcore fans, but fandom in general. And so it's not just us being negative Nancy's and pessimistic here. Our opinions shared on the show are a reflection of where fandom is right now. And I can tell you that overall, fandom is ready to champion a winner. We are desperate to be the #1 show on TV. We are desperate to fall in love with this. And I hope every week we can share opinions that would help the show get to a point that we can defend it to everybody on the internet, all of our friends and family in person. We want to be your army of defenders, but you're not giving us a lot to defend.
Yep, that's about right. I wouldn't say desperate. I am greatly desirous. I am desirous of a very successful notch in the belt of another Tolkien adaptation, a real successful one that people like to talk about and people would gather. Imagine people gathering for those popular weekly viewing parties, like Game of Thrones had incredibly popular viewing parties. Man.
Yeah. So, all right.
I also agree that we want it to succeed, but I'm not desperate for anything.
All right. Well, so speaking of giving us ammunition to fight the good fight, we are in love with Tolkien, and we want to love all of our visits to Middle Earth. That's why we watch the movies all the time and rewatch them. We reread the books and we play the video games, and Lotro is still going 20 years later. Like, we just want to live and breathe Middle Earth. And so we would love for this show, whether it has ads or not, we would love to revisit the show all the time, but you're not, it's challenging. And I want to get the opinion of the chat room based on today's brand new information. This is breaking news, folks. Breaking news. Charlotte Brandstrom is one of the directors of season 1. She did 2 or 3 episodes. And she is the lead director for season 2 of Rings of Power. She's done half. She is directing half of season 2. She's directing 4 episodes of the 8 of season 2. She's probably the most prolific Rings of Power director. Amazon is betting a lot on her talent and skill. And she is currently promoting another TV show called Shogun, which is getting rave reviews for the FX network, FX Hulu network. Shogun looks good, and I can't wait to see it. But she had this to say about Rings of Power Season 2. This is one of the first official confirmation from anything about Season 2. Let's go to it. This is moviezine.se. It's a Swedish. Of course, Charlotte Brandstrom is a Swedish director, and this is a Swedish movie thing. The Lord of the Rings of Power, listens to the complaints. The new season gets dirtier. The director behind half of the new season's episodes reveals that they tried to make it more worn and grittier in the continuation of the lavish series. And here's the big quote, folks. Charlotte Brandstrom says, "What I know and can confirm is that it's going to be darker, it's going to be more sharpened and character-driven. I really think that we have some very interesting episodes in the works. I saw them all over Christmas, just the rough cuts. I think it's going to be a very good season. We tried to make it more worn or a little dirtier, I guess. And not in terms of imagery, that is, but more to make it as authentic as possible. We've got some very surprising twists in it, too." Cliff, you saw this when it was posted at midnight last night. Your first thoughts on what Charlotte Brandstrom said about season 2?
Well, we don't need more twists. We don't need more twists. Thank you. And Jason Charles Miller just said, "Oh, yay, more twists." That's funny. Honestly, my first impression of this is that
well, first off, let me respond. Let's respond to Emil in the chat room that says she's probably referring to the Celebrimbor shock. That is not really a twist. That's just a narrative device. Like the fate of Celebrimbor is not a twist. It's very straightforward.
And
Like
yeah,
things
it's
happened, and it's a
not,
fate.
it's maybe. Hello. Well, hello there. There's Tolkien Study. Welcome to thank you. Tolkien Study is in our chat as well. Here's the thing. Man, I can appreciate the little part here where she says more character driven. Great. That's great. That's really good. And I can appreciate small little bits that she says, but I don't um, I don't overall say that it needs to be darker, darker and dirtier. It just needs to, I mean, she didn't say what she didn't say is what I want to talk about. My big impression here is that she didn't say we're done with mystery reveals. We're done with all the mysteries and the
No,
reveals.
she
We're going
doubled
to
down
get
on it.
yeah, she doubled down on it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Um, Surprising twists. No, man, we don't want any of those. Oh, surprise, Halbrand is really Sauron. I mean,
Garfield Mal in the
um,
chat room says, "How do you
hmm,
get dirtier and grungier than a volcanic eruption in your face?"
yeah, or it was great. The orcs and their prosthetics were as dirty and messy and orcish as you could ever want, and they were a great improvement over the Hobbit film trilogy, which had all of its CG goblins and CG orcs. But man, it's just what she doesn't say. It says right here, what I know and can confirm is that it's going to be darker and it's going to be more sharpened and character driven. Okay. Only part of that is useful information. It being more character driven, that's useful. That's very good. Um, but
Uh, Cliff,
gosh,
I've been hearing from insiders at the studio that they were very
yes.
proud to tell us over the last 8 months that
Mhm.
season 2 was darker and more violent. And then here she is now 8 months after I first heard those words, darker and more violent. And the first thing she says is, I can confirm that it's going to be darker. So, uh,
Okay. Well,
is this what you want to hear as a fan? Are those words something that is music to your ears? Do you get more hype for season 2 hearing the words darker and more violent and grittier?
no, no, honestly, what I want to hear is um, we have refined our approach and we're going to do away with mystery boxing critical plot characters and plot points and we're going to do it in a more straightforward, you know, way that Tolkien wrote the story. That's what I want to hear. We're going to be more straightforward. There's nothing wrong with great surprises. There's nothing wrong with television series that provides uh, dynamics and those dynamic surprises that make it great television. But that stuff kind of already exists. There's stuff that's in the appendices and in the stories that um, is going to just, I mean, all right, you're gonna go there, kids. You know what it makes me feel? It makes me feel like I think the word I'm looking for is powerless, maybe. And I don't know if we are. As a fandom, I don't know that we are entirely powerless. But I do feel that way a little bit right now. So I'm telling you, Justin, the energy that it takes to say, but why couldn't they do it like that? Because it's already written on the page. It's already written in the books with and of course, with Simon Tolkien giving his blessing to make, changes like this, it's just going to keep going this way.
Cliff, the
It's just
article
going to keep
goes
going
on to
this way.
say to remind everybody when the first season aired, showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay denied that they themselves agreed that the costumes looked too new. Sometimes clothes are actually new. Who also confirmed that he was wearing new clothes during his interview with McKay. But given that Branstrom directed four of this season's eight new episodes, it seems that some of the viewer feedback on the quality of the costumes has been taken to heart. Now, the author of this article would not be putting that in the article if they didn't have like a side conversation with, with Brandstrom. My original opinion, I'd love to get your opinion on this, but my reaction to this is, yes, we all had complaints about the Numenor armor looking stupid and looking like t-shirts, but that is like number 20 on the list of things to focus on and fix. Like, there's so many other things to fix in the show before we talk about grittier look of the costumes. And then the final part of this article says, it's still unclear when the second season of The Rings of Power will premiere, considering that it was at least possible for Brandstrom to watch through the season over Christmas, though it is very unclear how finished the episodes were. We should probably at least be able to hope for a premiere at the end of 2024 or at the latest sometime in the beginning of next year. Cliff, this is the first mainstream article to state that next year is in play.
Yep. That means it's wide open there. And I'm not too far off in saying it's a reasonable prediction that, that they might connect the show to the Super Bowl next year, 1 year from now.
Well,
can you
that's
imagine?
what I want to say. Like, Cliff, we've been in the journalism game for 22 years now. You've been an editor for 20 years here at the OneRink.net. You've gone on press junkets, press releases. You've been under NDAs. You know how this game works.
Yes.
Would a major publication like moviezine.se be saying something like this if they hadn't heard anything to that effect? Isn't it weird that a major publication in the movie business is actually saying potentially next year for this show?
Yes, indeed. It's starting to bring into alignment our previous guesses about the long silence on their social media since last summer, right? And they're not getting in front of the rumors. The studio is just letting the rumors run crazy. They're letting the rumors run crazy. They're letting the leaks go crazy. And all we have is really broad, wild speculation. But sometimes it's not so broad. Sometimes it's really specific. And we know what we're hearing from our little, we have little armies of birds, our little spies that tell us things. But hey, that's why we have that Spymaster address. Spymaster at theonering.net. That's why we have that address.
I want to respond to a couple people in the chat room. Jay Savage says, how do you gents follow up with "we don't mean to be pessimistic" and then being super pessimistic? I'm just reading the article. And forgive me, if an article says late 2024 or potentially early next year, that's not that is pessimistic from the article that we have nothing to do with. I'm reading an article and I'm being like, next year? That's a pessimistic view on the release. I mean, that is the opposite of optimistic that we're getting it in September, like everybody thinks.
Very much Jay Savage. I appreciate your point. I do appreciate that. I get it. And I'm really enthused to see the music of the Ainur. I am, more than anyone, really kind of excited about the 4chan leaks that say, wow, we're going to see the creation of this cosmos. And we'll see who, the Valar are and the Maiar, and we'll be in the presence of Iluvatar. I'm excited. I think that's super cool stuff. Really cool, as long as they don't play fast and loose with it. But yeah, it is reporting the news about, Brandstrom saying it's going to be darker and a bit more grim. Yeah, she's probably talking about the death of Celebrimbor, and it's pretty specific how Tolkien wrote that. His death is gruesome.
She didn't. Unfortunately, folks, she didn't direct the Celebrimbor fated episode.
Oh, really? Oh, so that big fight with the sacking of Eregion, the destruction of
Yeah,
Ost
that's
and
a different
Ithil,
director. That's a different.
and the death of Celebrimbor at the hands of Sauron and his orcs. That's a different director. Okay, well, hey,
Cliff,
but still, I get it. But I just want to say for the record, for the idea that we're not wallowing in any unnecessary pessimism at all. If I can help it, I'm just observing my feelings and my personal responses to this news. And the news is I want to hear anybody, whether it's an individual episodic director or whether it's the showrunners themselves or if it's the head of the studio. I want somebody to just tell us we've heard the fans and we understand how the fans feel about mystery boxing and the way that it was handled. So we're going to do a different approach and we're going to do it.
we
We're
just
just,
want to feel like we're being heard.
yeah, that's impossible around here. And that's what we're trying. We're trying to feel like we're being heard, but hey,
And
I
to
get
that,
it.
and Cliff's right. We need someone in not an anonymous source at Amazon, but like someone with their name and face out front to say, "We hear you guys."
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes, that'd be nice.
we
That'd be cool.
got we got the viewership data from Amazon, and that was a tough pill to swallow. But then seeing and hearing your reaction and your reviews to the show, like we want to say that we're telling you kind of what we want.
Yeah.
like that's all we've been doing for the last 2 years is saying,
yes,
look, we're not telling you how to direct and we're not telling you how to write. We're just telling you what would make a better show for us fans to get behind because we want to back a winner.
I am going to watch it. I'm going to tune in and I'm going to check it out. And I'm going to
you haven't lost us. You haven't lost us.
I mean, I'm going to check it out. I mean, really. I'm especially going to check out the season opening to see if the rumors really are true, that we get to hear the music of the Ainur and see this remarkable creation mythology visualized. I'm all about that. I think it's really neat.
I wanted to touch back to this thing. I wanted to touch on this before. And Cliff,
I'm not gung ho about everything, just to be honest.
Before we get into we've got some very surprising twists in it too. Comment. I want to mention that Charlotte Branstrom, director of 4 episodes of season 2, says, "I saw all of the episodes over Christmas, just the rough cuts."
Wow. Okay.
She says, "I saw them all over Christmas, just the rough cuts." Let me give this quote. And Cliff, tell me if I'm wrong. This quote lends a level of validity to the 4chan leaks. Because the 4chan leaks only occurred a couple weeks after Christmas. So if she had seen all of the rough cuts just around Christmas, and then 2 weeks later, 4chan leaks all that stuff about the show, that starts to check out. That if she has seen him, then other people have seen them.
Yeah. Okay. I follow that. Okay.
So, I just want to say that there's been some debate in the chat room. I appreciate you guys watching both the OneRing.net here and Fellowship of Fans, but I know that some people want to discredit the 4chan leaks. But I'm telling you, we did a whole episode validating where and how these leaks came to us, and I'm telling you that the timing checks out. If they are showing full, complete rough cuts of season 1 around Christmas, and then stuff starts leaking in January, the timing checks out.
Yep, it does.
And secondly, the other thing that I think helps validate the leaks is the twists. We've got some very surprising twists in it too. This is the Charlotte Branstrom, the director of, I believe, the first 3 episodes.
Yes.
we know from the leaks that within the first 3 episodes, those controversial things take place. And then a later episode in the season is the big Celeborn controversy. So Sauron has a son. That is a giant twist that nobody likes. Sauron takes the shape of Celeborn, Galadriel's dead husband. That is a giant twist that we don't like, do we, Cliff?
Not at all. Not at all.
This is not optimistic. In fact, this line, we've got some very surprising twists in it too, is the exact opposite of what all of us want to hear. And I hope that this magazine article doesn't dissuade anyone else from Amazon about talking about the show, because we're desperate to talk about the show and hear about it being talked. But boy, nothing in this statement today from Charlotte Brandstrom has brought me personally any closer to getting hype about this show.
That's true. I'll stand on that. But hey, I'm still wondering. I'm still wondering a lot of things, and mainly it's when is the marketing going to begin for season 2, and how many more leaks are going to be leaked? I wonder. We're getting a lot more mileage out of people sneaking information out the door instead of it coming straight from the horse's mouth. That's
and if you've been following this show, for the last year, we've been reporting that Amazon has yet to confirm that the showrunners were rehired back on the show after the strikes. We have no confirmation that the showrunners who left the show in the middle of production due to the strike left the show, and as far as we know, they have not been rehired. And we continually ask for advice and confirmation officially from the studio, and we can't even get an acknowledgement, even a one-word letter that says they're back or anything. We have
right. So
there you go.
That is such a weird. What a weird question mark. What a weird thing.
So there's a lot of question marks, and it all lends me to believe, based on this new article, Cliff, this is the first mainstream article that says potentially early next year. You and I have been reporting here on this show that it's possible that this show will get delayed to next year.
Yes.
After War of the Rohirrim from a competing studio come out in December.
That's right. Intriguing, isn't it? Yes. I know that there's some people in the chat who would really much like to talk very much about War of the Rohirrim. Don't have anything to say right now today.
Not yet.
War of the Rohirrim.
But
not yet.
I'm just saying.
Soon.
I'm so excited. You guys will see how excited. I'm not going to say anymore, but we've got some special stuff that is going to get you so hype for the other Lord of the Rings thing. So,
there's more than one. Now, here, didn't we once say that this was good for fandom to have Warner Brothers have some licensing and Amazon have different licensing to have competing Lord of the Rings products?
Everybody has to step up
in the marketplace.
Everybody.
Notice how I used the word products. Okay. All right.
We're in a new phase of Lord
We're in
of
a
the
new
Rings.
phase of fandom. These are Lord of the Rings products. These
War of the Rohirrim
films
comes out in
and TV shows.
December. It's going to be a Christmas movie.
Theatrical release in theaters nationwide, worldwide.
It is animated in Japan, so it is an anime design, and they've been keeping very close of the character designs of that movie, and
very close. Secret. Those designs are so secret.
Have seen it, and it's going to be interesting to get your reactions when you guys first see it. But we were expecting a Super Bowl trailer based on its original release of April, but when it got pushed to December, all of the marketing got pushed back. We fully expect War of the Rohirrim to have a giant presence at San Diego Comic-Con. And my dream right now is both
Yes.
War of the Rohirrim and Rings of Power coming to San Diego Comic-Con, and we have this giant Lord of the Rings thing around Comic-Con, and we have a War of the Rohirrim horse party one night, we have a Rings of Power cast and fan party the next night. That's my dream. We got 2 Hall H panels, we got our fan panels, we got that. I'm hoping that Comic-Con is going to be amazing for Lord of the Rings fans this year, and
Yep,
I'm
I
looking
agree.
forward to it. But
I'm looking, and yeah, to answer a question from Garthemau in the chat from a long time ago. Yes, Justin and myself will be in Anaheim, and we will be at WonderCon. Yes.
oh yeah,
So the answer is
WonderCon
yes.
is coming up Easter weekend. Look
It's
for it.
right around the corner. Yes.
Easter weekend. We have a panel on Easter Sunday. So Cliff, bring your eggs.
I will. Yep, I'll bring my chocolate eggs, my Cadbury cream eggs.
Should we get some plastic eggs and put Rings of Power leaks on each one, and then just kind of hand them out, and you might get a real leak or a fake leak, but the gift of leaks at WonderCon panel.
The gift of leak. Yeah, that's funny. Hello, Katie, asking, Cliff, thoughts on the composer chosen? I was really hoping that we'd get more of that exquisite Japanese influence in the score, like our Joe Hisaishi. Yes. I agree.
I have an opinion on that.
Has the composer of War of the Rohirrim been announced?
Yes, Stephen. I think I sent the link to Jason because Jason Charles Miller just did a giant packed 50,000 person arena for the Final Fantasy concert in Japan. Congrats, Jason Charles Miller, friend of the show. He's in the chat room right now. And I agree with Jason that Melkor should be playing an electric guitar when he does his Discord in the show, Van Halen style. Eruption. Yeah. Imagine if they licensed Eruption.
That's funny.
To tie in with the... Never mind. But Steven... what's his name? I believe Stephen Gallagher. Stephen Gallagher was a sound assistant on the Hobbit movies under Howard Shore. Warner Brothers has licensed Howard Shore's Rohan music for War of the Rohirrim. And to your point in chat room, you said you wanted some anime influences. Stephen Gallagher, although he lives in New Zealand right now, he was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. He is bilingual. He grew up in Tokyo, and he is very, very much tied in to the Japanese anime composing scene. So by luck of the draw, they found a composer, a sound mixer, Stephen Gallagher, who actually had one toe in Howard Shore's Hobbit world and one foot in the Japanese anime composing world. So we are actually getting the best of both worlds, and I hope that brings some excitement to you in the chat.
Wow. You know what? I just followed him on Twitter. His Twitter handle is SteveG_music. And I'm really, really glad that I've learned this. I'm glad I'm paying attention to the details right now.
Yeah, this soundtrack is going to be wonderful, and I hope they hire Doug Adams to do a deep dive book on this music, because I think for me it's just as interesting to hear how they incorporate the Japanese influence, the anime musical influences into the Howard Shore oeuvre of music. So I think there's a story to be told, and I hope we get a deep dive, and I hope we get good documentaries on it. An excellent
thing to remember is that working on the Hobbit trilogy with Peter Jackson, Gallagher, it says here on our own website on theonering.net, because we do have our story on theonering.net, Gallagher is probably best known to Tolkien fans for his work on The Hobbit, where, as well as working as music editor on all 3 films, he composed the songs Blunt the Knives and the torture song, which is sung exquisitely by the late Barry Humphries, who played the Great Goblin in An Unexpected Journey. So he wrote the music.
Yeah.
He wrote the music to go along with Professor Tolkien's poem. The poem, or the song, of Blunt the Knives and Bend the Forks. That's actually Stephen Gallagher. He wrote the music for that. How cool. Well, you know what?
A quote in the chat room says, I do expect Rohan theme to be incorporated. We can confirm 100% Howard Shore's Rohan theme is incorporated into this movie.
I'm sure it'll be heard
the movie
over
title
and over again.
opens with that music. And in fact, we had spies in France for that one and only animation preview of War of the Rohirrim.
Yes.
And they said,
that's right.
In fact, she drew this shirt, Molly. She said that, the animation was rough at the time. You could tell they were still animating things. But she said, when there's a shot of an army of horses galloping up over the ridge and the score, Howard Shore's Rohan music, swells, and then you see him Helm Hammerhand and his daughter.
Yes.
It makes you cry tears of joy and beauty, because this music, who is so identifiable with these epic helicopter shots of Eowyn standing in her white dress in the wind at Meduseld, and that dramatic moment when Aragorn says Gondor calls for aid, and there's that moment, will the king of Rohan respond, and all of that, and when the Rohirrim charge, all of these themes that Howard Shore has given so much emotion to, they're being repurposed and put to the historical story of the Shield Maidens of Rohan. This show is going to be everything you ever wanted, and I'm so excited for everybody to see it. That's our show. We've got some big scoops coming up in the next 2 weeks. You will want to tune in the next 2 weeks, because we've got some amazing stuff that has to do with horses, that has to do with other animals, and that has to do with people named after an animal. That's all I'll say.
Oh, hey, Pasquale Sorrentino in the chat says, at Annecy, I have a friend who was there, and he said to me the animation was incredible. Yep. We
War
had
of the Rohirrim is not in the Second Age. It's all a Third Age story. And
it should be.
It features Eowyn.
It should all be Third Age.
Eowyn. Miranda Otto is back as Eowyn. And fresh off of his giant Succession show, Brian Cox himself, the patriarch of Succession, Brian Cox is Helm Hammerhand. Yes, the man that is so legendary, they named the keep after him. Helm's Deep, Helm's Keep.
Yes.
That is named after Helm Hammerhand, and you will see why he's called Helm Hammerhand.
There will be no bizarre time compression where centuries and centuries and centuries of things happen all at once. That's not going to happen in this movie. Okay, so we can say that safely.
All right, again, big show. We had a ton of news, official statements from Charlotte Brandstrom, official news on Rings of Power. I told you how I feel about this statement. She says we've got some very surprising twists in season 2. And Cliff, you had your opinion, I had my opinion, but it's for you, the fans, to make up your opinions as we look forward to season 2.
That is ultimately the truth. And I'm still looking forward to seeing what interesting things they do. All said and done. So, hey, what an interesting show. Great conversation with everybody. And I like it. I like being challenged by our live chat and actually saying, hey, let's improve our attitude. Yeah, let's improve our attitude here on our show, shall we? So I am looking forward to many, many big things with the War of the Rohirrim and the television series, The Rings of Power. Let's see what happens next. And I'm also looking forward to some of these leaks that Mr. Justin hasn't even told me about. Believe me, I don't even know what they are. He's trying to surprise me. So thank you, everybody, for being with us. It is now 90 minutes later, we're 90 minutes with our show, and it's time to say good night. Until next week, we'll be back here again, 5 p.m. Pacific time on Torn Tuesday to dig into more rumors, news, and conversations and analysis about all things Tolkien. By the way, before we let the show go, get your hands on that new published letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. Get it. It's amazing. It's so amazing. Promise you, it's going to be the most worthwhile thing that you buy in terms of a Tolkien book all year. So good. Get your hands on it. All right. Bringing it back to the professor because we've got to do that. Okay. Thank you again to our worldwide audience, wonderful folks who are with us. And it's lovely to have you here. Always take care of yourselves and be good until next week. Okay? Be good now. No? Santa Claus? Yes, Santa Claus is watching. So you can find me on social media at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter. And if anybody is out there getting married and they need a really good wedding officiant, hey, I'm your guy. I will marry you. Okay? To each other, but not to me, but you get it. It's a lovely business. The wedding business is exploding. It's going to be great fun this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at WonderCon in Anaheim. Look it up. Tickets are very inexpensive and they're very much available. So if you're in the Southern California area, please join us. We'll have a great experience. Bye-bye, everybody, for now. Until next week, I like to say good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye.